I am telling you, they are actively diverting the mail because they want to take away your jobs. This is why you need to vote no, because you need to protect your jobs today, you need to protect labor in the future, and you need to take back your power.
The CIRB is trying to run this vote. It's a mess. It's brutal. It's federally mandated, and they don't know what they're doing.
Post offices weren't just about delivering letters. They were about building the nation. They encouraged businesses, transportation, and infrastructure development.
Do we want a post office that's fully privatized? Do we want our retail all to be privatized? No.
This job is a respectful job, and we've got to get that back.
The Silver Bullet Podcast with your host, letter carrier, and shop steward, Pirate Jim.
My daddy was a miner, and I'm a miner's son. And I'll stick with the Union till every battle's won. Which side are you on? Which side are you on? Which side are you on? Which side are you on?
With gratitude, mutual respect, and reciprocity, we acknowledge the ancestral home, culture, and oral teachings of the Treaty 7 signatories, which includes the Siksika Nation, Piikani Nation, Kainai Nation, the Ayithka Stony Nakota Nation, consisting of the Chiniki, Bearspaw, and Good Stony bands, and the people of the Tsuut'ina Nation. We also recognize the Métis people of Alberta Region 3, who call Treaty 7 their home. We respect all people who share, celebrate, and care for the Treaty 7 territory of Southern Alberta.
Aloha kako! Hello everyone, and welcome to the Silver Bullet Podcast, Season 3, Episode 6. We got a full show for you today. We're going to go back into the commission. We're still on day 1, and we're going to break down the bullshit once again. All of this is so that you understand why we need to vote no. All right. We also have the president of the Edmonton Local 730, James Ball, here to update us with what's going on. As you may have noticed in the last episode, I stringed together a whole bunch of his updates over a few days, so you don't miss anything. So some of the information's out of date, a little stale, but that's how it goes. All right. And we're going to have some testimonials of people, of different postal workers, explaining why they are going to vote no. Let's hear from James Ball with our updates.
Hey folks, it's a beautiful day. The CIRB will be hearing our complaint against the corporation for its unfair bargaining practices, where it was force feeding you information on your PDTs and leaving things out for you and trying to get you information by bypassing our negotiators. They'll be hearing that case, I think, on the 3rd and 4th of July, which is happening pretty quick. In other news,
a federal ban on replacement workers comes into effect today, but the delivery company DHL is asking for an exemption. After 10 months of negotiations, DHL locked out its workers on June 8th. The union responded with a strike only hours later. On day 6 of the strike, DHL announced that it was shutting down its operations this Friday. That's when Bill C-58, Canada's new anti-scab legislation, comes into effect. For those who don't know, a scab is a worker that takes a job with a company that is experiencing a strike or some sort of labor action at the time. This practice is looked down on in the labor movement because it really undermines the efforts of the workers who are currently on the picket line. So, in an effort to keep operations running, DHL have asked the government for an exemption to this new legislation. Here's a quote from their letter where they say that the exemption is warranted because they provide essential logistics services to Canadians. Charles Smith, a professor at the University of Saskatchewan, told our labor reporter Emma Arkell that the use of replacement workers by DHL was underhanded. DHL workers on strike, unsurprisingly, are not thrilled about it either.
DHL and Unifor have reached a tentative deal. There is no details on that. They're keeping that until their members vote on it. But that just says a couple of really interesting things. Like, if the government doesn't get involved, things move along. So DHL went to the government and asked them to waive the standard or the new standard for scab legislation, and the government said no. And apparently they also asked them to interfere and order people back to work, and they said no. And ta-da! They got a deal. Unlike us for the past, 20, 30 years, where we've been fighting with the government and they keep interfering in our contract negotiations. So we never get a deal, right? We always got to fight for it. So it just boggles my mind, and it just continues to show that the government is here trying to destroy public services that you use, and to just break it all down, right? So keep your chin up on that one. Another thought is that a no vote. So our national campaign of doing no votes is happening. They want you to do a video about why you want to vote no, and you'll join a little group through a QR code, and you'll upload your video, and then they'll make a collections video, and they'll publish that. I still need to do that, but I'm probably going to do a longer one for you guys, but I'll do what they've asked for me in that one. But a no vote is not a strike vote. A no vote is talking about just rejecting their offer and saying this is unacceptable. And historically, when we've done this in the past, it has resulted in Canada Post coming back to the table with a better offer or with reduced demands. I mean, so our second concession was to go for arbitration, which is always entertaining in its own regard, because we never want to go for arbitration. So it's actually a concession. And somebody said today that the offer is so bad that we would rather go for government arbitration. And so, that's part of the reason I'm going to vote no. Other parts of that detail is I've been looking at the document that they provided, and under the Appendix A charts for PO4s and letter carriers, I did the math, and Canada Post says that they're going to be offering us 13% or about 13.5% compounded over 4 years. But my math added up to 12.75% compounded over 4 years. So if one of you guys know a reason why 0.75% is missing, let me know. Or if there's a particular group they're using for that and screwing the rest of us, let me know. I've sent that up the chain, and they're probably going to ask those questions. So we'll see how that has to go. Yeah, but a no vote is not a strike vote. It is a vote of saying we don't want your contract. We want a better contract. So keep that in mind when you do that. Other disturbing things that came out was like Canada's 2028 plans, Canada Post 2028 plans were revealed in the Kaplan report. And they said that they want to balance out the wage values to compare to other unionized workplaces in the same field. So that would be like Purolator, UPS, FedEx, stuff like that. Well, the delivery agents are going to do okay because their delivery agents make more than ours do, significantly more, like $5,000 to $10,000 a year more than we do. But the plant workers are going to take a real beating. The values of our constitution, of our union, are that everybody should make similar wages. We don't think that any one particular group of work should be valued over the other significantly. And so right now, PO4S plant workers make the same wages as letter carriers do. But if we go with the industry standard, or what they're deciding is the industry standard, then what we end up having is delivery agents who are making the similar money or slightly more than we are as delivery agents, but their plant workers are making like minimum wage, and their benefits are terrible. So that would result in an almost 30% reduction in wages for our plant workers. And I don't want to see that. So if they don't think they're coming for you this time, they've already got you lined up, and that's only 2 years away. So we should probably build some solidarity and some support for each other, because right now they're coming after the letter carriers hard. They're coming after the RSMCs pretty hard too. So the delivery side of things they're coming after, and they're trying to just destroy and gut our collective agreements. And right now, it's harder for the corporation to get rid of delivery agents because under the law, there are a number of routes that need to get delivered. And the only way that they can change that is by doing a restructure. So They restructure it. It results in less routes, therefore less jobs. But in a plant environment, they've been continually getting rid of the jobs over time. So somebody will quit or retire, and they'll just decide, no, we don't need this person. So they just won't fill the position, and they'll delete it. I'm going to have to actually compile the numbers of the last year. I think it was around 40 positions that were lost last year. So it's over time, they're just deleting your positions. And that's why a lot of relief people never get full-time in the plant. They've been working for 10 years as relief, part-time on call, even though there are, 32 full-time positions worth of temporary labor used every month for January, February, and March, or 64 part-time jobs. So, that would significantly put a dent in the temporary usage. One of the things we asked for in the contract offer was to guarantee that part-time workers would get the extended hours before they would call in temps, and Canada Post outright rejected that. So they want to make sure that their temp pools are solid and that they can use them because they cost the least amount of money. There's no benefits involved. Although I don't understand that one. So the benefits cost is the benefits cost, whether you work 4 hours or 8. So I'm not sure. I think it's just nastiness on the company's part. But we have opportunities. We have potential. We can demand better by voting no. So keep your chin up, all right? Have a great day. Hey folks, it's a beautiful day. But I'll tell you what isn't beautiful. It's the way the CIRB is trying to run this vote. It's a mess. It's brutal. It's federally mandated and they don't know what they're doing. So the CIRB has presented this vote to us as if they want nothing to do with it. The verification process is a joke. Employee numbers for most of our members are sequential. And if they don't think that people can't figure out the year and birth month of one of the other members of people that they work with, well, shit. I could just find that on Facebook. This is not a verification system. This is a speed bump on the way to voter fraud. The site went up just the other day, and I immediately went to check it out to see what had happened. And, there weren't any instructions. Just a couple of things. There weren't any instructions. They've added the instructions now. They're rudimentary. And as of yesterday, they've added a little icon on the top right that's supposed to be a help service. I haven't tried it out because it worked for me the first time, but I was very early in that system. Not everyone's been so lucky. I've received innumerable complaints from members that say the site isn't working. Or they got partway through the process and the system stopped providing them with the next steps. Or the web page is listed as a dangerous site. Or it didn't work on Safari, or it didn't work on Chrome, or the email was sent to the old email even after they confirmed the new email, or went to the junk folder, etc., etc. What am I doing with these complaints, CIRB? I don't have any authority over the vote, and I don't have any contacts in your institution. Another thing that I noticed is that there's a Canada Post logo in the top left corner. Why is it there? Well, let's look at the URL of the voting site. It ends with CPG GPC. I wasn't quick enough to get this right off the hop, so I stuck that in a search engine. And the listing that came up for this is for the Purelator SAP login. Just so everybody knows, CPG stands for Canada Post Group of Companies. The real failure here is one of trust. The CIRB needs to understand that we don't trust them or any level of government. The history of interference, of stealing our rights from us, is way too long. And for that to happen, all we could hope for is that the CIRB would act with intelligence and act as a third party. But they fucked it up. This lackadaisical minimal cost bullshit is offensive. They have made the minimum effort that they require. They don't even have the capacity to run a vote. I'm not clear on who's paying for this, but I suspect the budget was minimal, and it didn't even disclose who was holding the information they're collecting. Using Canada Post Group of Companies to host the vote on computers that they run. Seriously? Canada Post is probably the person we trust the least. There are decades of embittered trust issues, and you think it's a good idea to let them host the email addresses that you're going to send the personal identification numbers to? The people whose bonuses are based on the goals that might include break the union contract at all means? And what is this personal information? There was no disclaimer about who gets to use it, if they can sell it, who maintains it, what rights and authority are guaranteed to those of us giving our email to the address. The whole thing is a mess. They need to stop. I wrote an email to our National Executive Board about the ridiculous problems we've been having and asked that they demand that we vote, that we do the vote in person. It obviously wasn't their first message because I received a response in less than 10 minutes, and within an hour there was a bulletin out about it. Our National is addressing the concerns of the CIRB. Our demand is that we run the votes in person. I personally would prefer they just call the whole thing off. For now, though, please continue to try to update your email addresses because in Canadian elections and votes, we only count the votes that are cast. We need as many votes to be no as possible. So many no's that they're afraid to lie to us. Because many of us are afraid that this is the most corrupt vote in Canadian history. If we aren't satisfied by the vote, then there will be no choice but to defy any result that comes from it. If they aren't going to let us hold the votes, then this federally mandated and ordered vote should be run by Elections Canada. So we got our decision back from the CIRB in regards to the unfair labor practice where the corporation is negotiating with you rather than with our negotiators. Well, not entirely unexpected is that the CIRB has dismissed our claim. What is unexpected, however, is that they've chosen to forego good legal practices and decide that they're going to provide justification at a later time. And if I remember correctly, they did this as well with Section 107. I've never checked to see if they actually did follow up with justifications or not. I'll have to look into that when I get the opportunity. Some things of particular concern were brought to my attention in this bulletin that was provided today on Wednesday, July 9th, is that it is with great disappointment that we received yesterday a bottom line decision from the Canadian Industrial Relations Board. Bottom line is quoted, and usually what that means is that they're actually taking a direct quote. So I'm not a lawyer, but you know, everybody's using ChatGPT, including lawyers these days. So I tried to find a solution to what that meant. What does it mean in a bottom line decision? And I can't find any legal references to that at all, except for the discussion about negotiations. So a bottom line in negotiations would be like the lowest that you'd go. This is not really super defined because this is a fluid thing in negotiations. Your bottom line could change from week to week, day to day, negotiation moment to negotiation moment. So it's a kind of a weird thing to see that the CIRB would say it's a bottom line decision. Are we in negotiations with the CIRB? I thought we were in negotiations with the company. And what they've chosen, and I may have to quote this again, they dismissed the unfair labor practice that we filed on June 3rd. The bottom line decision was issued by the CIRB given the upcoming votes, and the CIRB will issue reasons at a later date. So because they're having a vote, they've decided that their bottom line is to dismiss our claim because they really need this vote to go through, apparently. They really, really need this vote to go through. So now I'm absolutely positive that Canada Post is working with the Liberal government, which they have been for the last 30 years. And now the CIRB, which is owned by the government, is very clearly working on their behalf. So get ready to roll. If you don't like it, vote no. That's the only thing I got to say.
Listen, I have already reported that an increasing number of people are reporting that they are receiving letter mail via Purolator. On Friday, my son got a notice on the front door saying that he had missed the Purolator truck and that he needed to go to the authorized retail center to pick up an envelope. This is that envelope. When he opened it up, guess what was inside? It was correspondence from WSIB. This is letter mail. How do I know it's letter mail? because it is a postage paid envelope that says letter mail on it. Now, this envelope says that it comes from a company called AIIM in Scarborough, Ontario. And when you look them up, guess what? They are a Canada Post trusted partner. Well, you would think as a Canada Post trusted partner, they would be aware that under the Canada Post Corporation Act of 1985, this falls under the sole jurisdiction of Canada Post. And as a follow-up, WSIB, do you have so much money to throw around that you can take an already postage paid envelope and then pay Purolator to deliver it? I am telling you, they are actively diverting the mail because they want to take away your jobs. This is why you need to vote no, because you need to protect your jobs today, you need to protect labor in the future, and you need to take back your power.
So let's talk about the exclusive privilege of the corporation, the Canada Post Corporation's right to deliver the mail. So if you go to the Canada Post Corporation Act of 1985, you can find the exclusive privilege under Section 14. And that's 14.1, subject to Section 15. The corporation has the sole and exclusive privilege of collecting, transmitting, and delivering letters to the addressee thereof within Canada. So Canada Post is the only one who gets to deliver the mail. But nothing in this act shall be construed as requiring any person to transmit by post any newspaper, magazine, book, catalog, or goods. So there are exceptions to this list. The exclusive privilege referred to in subsection 14.1 does not apply to A. Letters carried incidentally or delivered to the addressee thereof by a friend or a sender of the addressee. Which is important because I remember being a kid and doing that awkward thing where it's like Valentine's Day and you're delivering Valentine's cards to other children at the table. I mean, if there wasn't the exception, then everybody could be charged under the Canada Post Act. So another one is commissions, affidavits, writs, processes, or proceeding issues by a court of justice. So there are other options for them to deliver. Letters lawfully brought into Canada and forthwith posted thereafter. It's a bit weird, but yeah, so if you bring a piece of mail in from another country, you can post it without the exclusive privilege. D. Letters concerning goods. Letters concerning goods for delivery therewith, carried by a common carrier without pay, reward, advantage, or profit for doing so. So you can, for free, carry mail and deliver it somewhere. Shocker. E. Letters of an urgent nature that are transmitted by a messenger for a fee of at least equal to an amount that is 3 times the regular rate of postage payable for delivery in Canada of similarly addressed letters weighing 50 grams. That's an interesting one. We'll come back to that. F. Letters of any merchant or owner of a cargo vessel or the cargo therein that are carried by such vessel or by any employee or such merchant or owner and delivered to the addressee thereof without pay, reward, advantage, or profit for doing so. Well, a lot to do with cargo shipping. G. Letters concerning the affairs of an organization that are transmitted between offices of that organization by an employee thereof. So you mean that if I had a mailroom and we had another mailroom in another office, we could just drive it over there. Okay. H. Letters in the course of transmission by any electronic or optical means. Oh, good thing there's that exception, or every email sent would have to be go through Canada Post, but that's not the case. The law is being reasonable. I. Letters transmitted by any naval, army, or air forces of any foreign country that are in Canada with the consent of the Government of Canada. So we're not responsible for delivering military mail of other militaries. But let's go back to E. Letters of an urgent nature that are transmitted by a messenger for a fee at least equal to an amount that is 3 times the regular rate of postage payable for delivery in Canada for similarly addressed letters weighing 50 grams. That's an interesting one. Because that could be like urgent documentation being sent by a lawyer to a client, which would usually be done by courier of some sort, bike courier or, served to people, what have you. Well, these days it seems like people are taking mail that is postmarked for Canada Post to deliver, which means that it belongs to the Crown. And then they're stuffing it into another envelope and shipping it through other courier services. Well, is it technically legal? Well, according to this, it is. As long as they pay 3 times the going rate. So that would be like, what, $4.50? Something like that. But here's the problem I have. There's been another law that's changed recently, and that's the anti-scab legislation. So we're currently in a legal strike. We are striking by doing an overtime ban at the moment, but we're currently in a legal strike. And does that mean that anybody transmitting this mail is doing so in violation of that law? That's a tough question to answer, and I suppose they'll probably keep that one in court for a very long time if we choose to pursue it. But I'd like all of those members out there of other delivery agencies who are part of a union to consider that it might be scab work. And if you determine that it could be scab work as well, I would like you to refuse that. Because I'm just doing what I'm told hasn't been an excuse since 1943. So maybe think about that. All right? Have a great day.
Extra, extra, read all about it. Extra, extra, read all about it. Extra, extra, read all about it.
Let's talk about Bill C-2, as they call it, the Strong Borders Act. Well, folks, this bill is being brought forward to strengthen our borders and the ability to spy on people. This is Donald Trump's influence on our political system, and I don't know what our Prime Minister is doing, but it sure seems when you break this down, he's bowing to Trump and kissing the ring. There's a lot of things wrong with this, but the number one thing here is the ability to investigate you based on assumptions, all right? Pre-crime, so to speak. If you look at Part 3 of the bill, this is where they talk about the pre-crime, where they're able to search because they think or have suspicions that you may commit a crime in the future. Sounds like a movie I've heard about. Now, this is all about drugs, so if they suspect you're a drug dealer and you're smuggling across the border, well, now you should be worried about this right now. But how long until they decide to expand this power? So imagine for a second, oh wait, the Canada Post Amendment, they want to open your mail, and if you're a troublemaker, oh, my boss, Doug Ettinger, would say, hey, let's get our friends in our CMP Department of Canada Post to start investigating our workers, our union workers, our union leaders. They want to open your mail without a warrant. Right now they can do it, but they have to get a warrant first. They do say that we will do this through legal channels, the proper legal channels. But, once you adjust those channels, So not only do they want to spy on us, to monitor us, they want to limit cash transactions. So Part 11, they want to limit our cash transactions between certain people at the moment. And once that happens, you get flagged. This is to focus on money laundering. But for how long? Bill C-2, it ain't good.
Hi, my name is Andy Gross. I'm Local 548. I'm a PO5, formerly a letter carrier. I'm also the recording secretary for our executive. I'm here just to say it's a big no from me, and I encourage everybody else to tell Canada Post it's a no. We cannot sell out the future for the new hirees coming beneath us. We can't have our pension being attacked. People in the past have not sold out the future for us. So what we currently benefit from, they fought for in the past, and you can look at the past strikes and everything like that. They have fought hard for us, and we cannot go down without a fight, which we currently are fighting. Right now, this final offer, the language in it is just terrible. It's going to strip full-time jobs and all that stuff. So it's a big fat no, and I hope we all stick together in solidarity.
Y'all might think that it's just happening in Canada Post, But Canada Post is setting a precedent here for all courier companies, for all of Canada, and you guys don't get it. There is a structure that's being implemented, and whatever Canada Post gets away with in this strike is going to affect all Canadians. I need you guys to listen. This is not just about money. This is not just about that. This is about our rights. And most of you guys are saying, oh, well, you know what? I have this shitty ass minimum wage job where I don't make any money. Well, guess what? It's time for you guys to stand up and fucking fight. There's no reason why any of us should be getting paid a shitty ass wage at any point in fucking time for any of the jobs that we do. I would never come to your job and tell you that you're not good enough or you're not being, you're overpaid for your job. No, fuck that. You're doing the work. You deserve to get paid. And they are playing with us, y'all.
All right. Breaking down the bullshit time. And the reception isn't coming in so good here from the ship, as you can tell, because it keeps cutting in and out. So it's an effect, baby. I'm struggling with technology as usual. Anyway, we're going to do breaking down the bullshit. And we're going to be listening to Alexandre Bresson, and he's going to explain the operational challenges Canada Post is having and how it's all our fault, as in the letter carriers. And then we're going to move ahead to CUPW's response to that. That happened later in the day. And some things to think about before we start. Take notice of the tone Kaplan uses with the boss versus us. And he also has a hard time grasping some concepts and gets kind of frustrated and takes it out on us, I would say. So take note of that. Because of that, let me know what you think in the comments, if you think maybe his opinion is already tainted before this all started, right? Anyway, we'll stop and start, and let's get going.
Absolutely. So let me just track back 5 years now at Canada Post. They're all been great years. I've had the pleasure to work with so many passionate employees at Canada Post, dedicated employees working for customers, delivering day in, day out in good weather and tough weather and being out there all the time. Also had a privilege to see all different opportunities we have to improve internally and actually become a better company. Absolutely convinced that if we're able to work together, there's a way to compete in that parcels business. And I hope that we're able to rewrite the chapter for decades to come here. So what I want to do today is use a few minutes of this commission time to just introduce a very, very simple example to try to bring to life what it means to be flexible going forward. Lots of rules. You heard from my colleague, Carrie, that flexibility is a key driver, a precondition for us to be able to compete in the market going forward. And flexibility is really on two fronts. Flexibility is how we serve our customers, have ways to serve them in the way they want to be served. But it's also the flexibility to work on ourselves, the flexibility to rethink our processes, the flexibility to streamline the way we work so we can be more productive and we can actually sustain our pricing in the market, because the pricing in the market is a key competitive advantage and we need to be in the game. Our competition knows that. Our competition is looking at their volume every day. The competition is looking at the work hours they expand to meet the volume every day. And they're looking at the way they deliver and the routes.
I just wanted to stop this for a second. What I also forgot to tell you to keep in mind is that on our committee, those people that are sitting, if you can see my arrow on this side of the table, some of them have worked for Canada Post for 35 years. You know, I don't think anybody there is under 10 years on that committee, bargaining committee. When you look at the people on the other side of the room, they've been there for maximum, I think, of 5 years. At least, Doug, the main decision makers have only been there for 5 years. They haven't been through all the things that the workers have been through, right? And then you got Mr. Kaplan over here. Well, he hasn't been involved in anything with Canada Post up until this moment. So his experience at this point was 4 weeks, 3 weeks. He was appointed December 17th, 18th, and this is the 27th. So, about a month, 4 weeks. And has he done any other investigation into how things work in Canada Post and how mail is delivered other than what the guys on the right side of the room are sending to him, right? So you got to think about stuff like this when we're watching these things, and especially if you're voting in this corrupt CIRB vote, because what you're voting for is what these guys on the right are saying, right? All right. Keep that in mind.
Route design they're using to deliver, and they're optimizing this on a daily basis. And the reason they do this, it's a major driver of cost, and it's a major driver of competitive advantage if you're able to closely match your worked hours and the actual volume that's coming your way. So I'll put that in contrast to the way we're designed. So we're designed for a letter mail environment. We're designed for a fixed network. So we got a 5-day a week, Monday to Friday, fixed delivery routes. And every day of the week, we basically repeat the same deliveries day after day, independent of the volume we get in that morning. Our letter carriers go out, they travel the same route, and they deliver to our customers day in and day out, repeating the same activities. The window we have to adjust, it takes a very long time. And I'll get back to that. The process that we use to be able to synchronize our work hours to volume is very, very cumbersome. I also want to highlight the key difference from our competition. The way we're structured right now is our delivery agents actually are owners of their route. Owners of the route means they deliver that very same route every day. And they also are the owners of the work that belongs to that route. So any given parcels going to that route will have to be delivered by that route owner, which is our letter carriers. And I'll get back to that as well. Next slide. So the depot restructure process is what governs our ability to match our work hours to our actual volume that our customers are sending us. And again, matching work hours to volume is paramount in driving our own productivity. The process is built for letter mail, extremely time consuming. Doing a restructure in a depot was a 6 to 9 months elapsed time. It's extremely labor intensive. I got a very large team working day in and day out just to be able to sustain that process. The depot structure process is also a process that's looking backwards. So if we position ourselves in an environment where, say, we're trying to plan the work hours to work tomorrow, to work next week, to work next month, you got to be able to look forward. Delivery structure process today looks backwards. So we're looking at past historical averages, 12 months trailing before we implement. So basically looking at what's happened in the past. So that's equivalent as driving a car and you're looking in the rearview mirror. So you see what's behind you, but you actually don't see what's coming your way. And that's the way we're structured today. To give you a sense, we did 117 depots in 2024. So doing a depot means we actually assessed all the hours and we right-sized the amount of worked hours we have in that depot to be able to meet this volume that's coming to the depot. 117 in 1 year. The network Canada Post has got more than 450 depots. So at that pace, it really
Okay. They did this study in 2024. We started our negotiations in November of 2023. And since then, they've progressively picked away at the business. And so they said they did this study or whatever he just said they did. I don't know. I guess I would call it a volume count, I guess, during 2024. And around March, April of 2024 is when they started telling customers to start perhaps thinking of alternate ways of moving your product and such, because there might be work stoppage in July. And of course that didn't happen. But of course the business did. That's when they started giving discounts. Actually, no, it was during the strike they gave the 65% discount. But they did offer to get people to move over to Perlator, and they probably did give them a discount, and I don't know for sure. Check that out. Anyway, so that's March, April 2024. Enough to make the business kind of fall by July. Nothing happens in July. Business continues to fall because the boss keeps on sending out little things here and there. So that in the end, yes, in December, because their plan is to stall as long as possible until government gets involved, which is, I think they expect it to happen before we went on strike, or at least maybe 2 weeks into it. Anyway, so now the strike hits, and the big discounts come for switching to Perlator for parcels. And oh boy, you might not get your bills. You might want to switch over to somebody else, blah, 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 blah. Business going down and down and down, and now we're in the situation where every couple of days there's something in the media telling people, oh, well, this and that about labor problems, and we have people trying to return their routers and such to Rogers, and Rogers is saying, no, we can only use Perlator, boss says. And if we request to use Canada Post, they say, oh, no, there's a labor disruption, so we can't use them. So everybody's put into fear to not use us, right? So what I'm getting at is that they're doing all of these volume counts while this is happening. Well, yes, the business is going away, but why aren't they finding more business? So just keep that in mind in the back of your mind here too.
It means I need at least 4 years to be able to readjust the work hours in all Canada Post depots across the network. There's a chart here that shows aging. So in depots are delivery routes. The routes are owned by delivery agents. And this graph basically shows aging of those routes. So the best scenario we have is we actually restructured 4,167 routes in 2024. That's my best case scenario. Those depots is where we're most synchronized with the volume coming our way. But please note that I'm talking in years, where the competition is looking at this in days. So beyond that, you see almost 3,000 depots in our system with more than 1 year. They have not been reassessed for workload for more than 1 year. And then from there, you see many more depots, thousands of them, more than 2 years old from a restructure standpoint. The process is labor intensive. So in 2024, I highlighted that we restructured 117 depots.
I'm trying to figure out. Oh, right. They're getting at they need to be able to restructure quickly in less amount of time. That's what he's trying to get at, to show how terrible this system is. This route, the LCMS, is so terrible because it takes forever. Meanwhile, they just updated our PDTs with stuff that is totally pointless. Click here, click this. Did you sign it at the door? Did you scan the DNC at the door or at the depot? And blah, blah, blah. Like, give me a break.
Took a team of 300 full-time employees to be able to sustain that process. So if I'm trying to calibrate this and I set a goal to say, I want to do all 450 depots in the same year, I would have to scale a team That would be close to 1,000 people. In a company in our status, with the kind of financials we have, 1,000 people to readjust volume once a year is completely unreasonable. The goal here is not to add people over time. The goal is going to have to be to streamline our processes. So when I'm looking at this overall situation and the way we're aligning the work hours to volume, the people that showed up this morning in the depot are actually executing a plan.
Okay, my brain is caught on this. He wants to restructure it. Sounds like not once a year now. He's saying that it's too long, but then also restructuring. I don't know. Whatever. Maybe you got it figured out. If you understand, let me know.
That's more than 2.5 years outdated. The data we're using is 2.5 years old.
Answer my question.
And we're trying to synchronize our workforce to current daily volume. My sense is we can do better.
I got it. He's setting up the reason for load leveling and dynamic routing.
Next one. I also want to say, and I said that in my intro, everything I'm saying here is not the making of our employees. We just got great employees. They're talented and they're dedicated. And what they do is they show up in the morning at our depots, they load their trucks, and they go on the road and they serve customers. That's what they do. What's in the truck, the way we planned it, is not their making.
All right. Keep those words in your head. We do our job. We fill our trucks and we deliver it. It's not our fault. It's not our fault, they're saying. And that's for the benefit of those who are going to vote yes. Because supposedly, they care about you. It's not about us. Or it's not our fault. It's the LCMS's fault. Although 1 minute it's that, and then it's letter mail is fault. And then it's, well, what's the parcel delivery drop? Whose fault is that? Because we can't deliver on weekends. That's whose fault that is. So because we can't deliver on weekends, the entire business has collapsed and all of our major parcels are being delivered by prolator. Right, and that's because we don't deliver on weekends. I'm kind of getting lost about whose fault it is and what's going on. How about just go get more sales? Anyway, but just remember, it's not the Posties' fault, according to what he just said.
It's our joint effort to try to align our workforce and work hours to the volume we have. So not only the depot restructure process takes a very long time and is labor intensive, it produces a very, very imprecise outcome. And the reason it does is it's not based on daily volume. It works with averages. So we look at the past and we look 12 months of data, and then we create an average. And we say that average is going to be the milepost. It's what I'm going to plan against. Just by the virtue of the average, people showing up in the morning at their depot never, ever work the exact average that we plan for, obviously. So you got a group of people that actually have less volume than expected, and therefore can't fill an 8-hour workday simply because the volume's not there. And we got another group of people that show up in the morning and they have more volume than we planned for, and therefore drive more than an 8-hour workday. Simply by virtue of the way we're planning and the way we're using averages. And then the route ownership concept kicks in because the work belongs to a route and cannot be moved around. So let me provide a visual of what this looks like.
All right, so he's going to now describe the two different types of letter carriers, the ones that are done early and the ones who are not done early. And he actually describes how people rearrange their days so that they don't take their lunch breaks. So watch how this kind of mental gymnastics comes about, where all of a sudden it goes from, oh, well, the letter carriers, it's not their fault, they're just readjusting their day, to all of a sudden now they're wasting time, trap time, And those nasty letter carriers have to do more work because they're not working 8 hours yet. They just said they rescheduled their time. They don't take their breaks and their lunch, and they do that at the end of the day, right?
So this is a real life example, and let me just set the context of this. It's an actual depot. It's a large one. It's motorized. It's got trucks in the province of Quebec. And it's a snapshot in time. And that snapshot was taken in October. And really the reason for October is we just try to get as normal of circumstances as we can find. So October is not our peak period. So we actually look at the week of October 7th. So it's not peak period.
So he's saying that they do a volume count in October? I think they've always avoided October. I'm trying to think. The first volume count I did, it was in November. Maybe it was December. So maybe. My thought was they hardly ever do volume counts at the beginning of Christmas rush. So I don't know how truthful, and well, then they should be high volumes in their count.
It's not super busy period, but it's not low season either. It's not summer, so we're kind of right there in the middle. It's a 5-day work week. Nothing special about it. And we use October 8th being a Tuesday because that was the busiest day of the week. We also use a very, very conservative approach. We used all the data we had to be able to map this. And then some of the data we don't see, some of the actions of our delivery agents we don't see. For example, there's a possibility that delivery agents, as they leave it on the road, work through the breaks and work through their lunches, for example. So we just took a very conservative approach, and we gave all the unproductive time to all the routes and all the drivers to be able to map this chart. So what you see here is the number of delivery agents by the time they actually work during that day. And we get a picture that is very not surprising in the sense where we work based on average. So the average is right there in the middle. That's my vertical red line. That's workload to match exactly 8 hours of work. So the first thing I observe when I see a chart like that, I see that there's a group of 17 delivery agents that work just slightly less than 8 hours. And there's a group of 16 that work just slightly more than 8 hours. And I kind of like that match because I say, okay, so for those, the average actually worked for them. And they were very close to the average of 8 hours. So we got good alignment there. But then you see a group that's on the left-hand side, not by their making, but they showed up that morning and they have the volume aligned with the way we planned this thing. So they did not work for 8 hours. They came back earlier. Conversely, on the right-hand side, we got the other scenario where we got a group letter carrier showed up and they had more volume. So they worked more than 8 hours that day. So what that does is when you work less than 8, we got job guarantees and pay guarantees, and you're paid 8. We're paying our employees 8 hours a day, no matter what volume we have, no matter how long they work in delivery world. If you're on the right-hand side and you got more than we had planned for, you're going to get obviously going to get your full 8 hours of work, and you're going to get overtime on top, which is totally legitimate. But our ability as a group to balance this out drives productivity in our depots. So I would say reasonable match.
All right. So all this is fantastic. I can see now, there's all this time that because the volumes are low for one route, that means if they don't have as much mail that day, they're going to come back early no matter what because they got nothing to deliver. Oh my God, we got to give them something else to fill those hours because we're wasting time. Well, they just said everything's, for one thing, they just said everything's dropping so much there's nothing to deliver. So even if you need to fill that time, what are you going to be delivering? Because there's no mail, right? If the volume is so low. Oh yeah, okay, another route is high. So, okay, well then give them that. Well, then that letter carrier has to figure out where the hell they're going. And who do they pick up that mail from? The way it sounds like they're going to try and do this is that it's all done at the beginning of the day. So they already know that you're going to do your part and this part and it's going to work out. Sure. But how about the needs of that letter carrier after they've done their route? okay, so maybe they didn't deliver as much because it was a little less. There wasn't as much mail or whatever compared to the day before. However, for me, all my houses are houses, and I have a lot of big steps on a lot of it. So even like, say it's pink, and pink that day I have a lot of stairs in pink. So I'm still walking up and down those stairs, right? I'm still physically doing that work. So this computer is using statistics, and these guys are using statistics, numbers, without thinking about the human part of it, the wear and tear of the body. Are you going to be giving someone like me then, if I have to go back out for another hour's worth of work, am I going to be doing like something where I'm not walking? Are you going to be able to go, oh, well, you know what? He's like, oh, 448 has all houses and lots of walking. Let's only give him the apartment building from 432. Right? Like, how are they going to, like, this is the nightmare. It's going to be a nightmare, and it's all to save time, which in the end, they're going to waste more time, in my opinion. All to justify whatever there is. Well, you'll see what they're trying to do.
And we'll look at this to say, okay, so we got a group of people here. Some don't have enough work. Some have too much work. I'm just going to equalize this, and I'm going to move some work from one party to the other party, and I'm going to create a view where everybody's going to be
simple. Ooh, let's just move this work from that work. What do you know? Then we're making more money, and we're not going to go out of business.
Working close to 8 hours a day. That would give our employees a full 8 hours day, and that would smooth our costs because we would avoid the overtime. That's an opportunity that we have to increase productivity. It's not about working faster. It's about planning better and have a better framework around the amazing work that our employees are doing.
So I actually know the answer to this question, but I'd like to hear it from you. Take the employee who's worked 4 hours and he, she, or they returns to the depot, and you have work for them to do for the remaining of their shift. Tell me, please, how Canada Post deals with that situation and what the requirements are.
The requirements are a delivery agent delivers, and they deliver what's in their truck. So when the run is done and they come back to the depot, they complete their duties, and we're unable to assign additional work. So that's a short day, and the employee goes home with a full 8 hours.
See, and this is where the misconception starts with Kaplan. He just put in his head that they're not allowed to give us more work, right? What he gets to in a bit is that, oh, sure, they can do callbacks, but it's not straight time anymore. It's now overtime, right? And so what he's saying is the only way these people do more work is if we pay them more on top of the 8 hours they already got, right? So they're starting to build this case of them greedy letter carriers. They won't do it. They won't do what they're supposed to do unless they're paid overtime.
So let's say, for instance, you say to that employee, to him, her, or them, there's some extra work we'd like you to do. Since you're getting paid for 8 hours, what stops you from reassigning that employee so that he, she, or they works for the full 8 hours?
The straight answer to that is the labor agreement that we have. Simply not the way it works.
So if you wanted to incentivize that employee to actually do some more work between hours 4 and 8, for instance, what options do you have?
I don't believe I have any. At straight time, I don't believe I have any.
Could you offer the work on an overtime basis?
I believe for work that's directly related to their task, I could, and that'd be time and a half.
So you could reassign that employee for an additional 4 hours, and you would pay him or her or them for 8 hours plus overtime.
That's correct. That's correct, because their run will account for a full day of work.
Thank you.
Let's learn my new dance while we learn about Marxist theory.
Meet me at the
Marxism is essentially a materialist philosophy. The genius of Marx was that he allied the humanist philosophy of Hegel with the economics of people like Ricardo. Marx said, up until now, philosophers have only sought to interpret the world. The point is to change it.
We are the Revolutionary Communist Party members of the Canadian Union of Postal Workers.
And we've gathered here this weekend from across the country for the second Congress of our party.
A report released last week from the Industrial Inquiry Commission revealed what we already knew.
All levels of government have united to gut the post office and smash our union.
If we are to stand a chance, we must return to the revolutionary militant roots of our union.
We believe that our union cannot continue defending the status quo, that our union cannot survive with further half measures and compromises.
We have produced an article about the roots of our union and the illegal strike of 1965, which won the right to strike for all public sector workers. We must transform our union back into a fighting union.
We know postal workers are tired. We were already on strike for over a month last fall.
The CUPW communists strongly advocated for the need to prepare to defy all attacks on our democratic right to strike.
We played an important role in the Edmonton local organizing a successful defiance vote, which passed overwhelmingly.
Despite all this, our leadership buckled to the back to work order. And now we are having to prepare for another round of battle as a result.
But we can still win if we organize.
The truth is, Canada Post is in an existential crisis.
There is a crisis, but it's a crisis of the capitalist system that has driven the post office into the ground. And to dig themselves out of this hole, the bosses are trying to make the workers foot the bill.
To compete with the private sector, management is trying to make us work longer hours with less pay and worse working conditions.
They want to casualize us, force more of us to work part-time schedules on weekends and change our routes on a whim.
In other words, they want to turn Canada Post into the hellhole that Amazon is for its workforce.
We say, hell no.
Rather than compete with a private, for-profit corporation based solely in parcel delivery.
A corporation that closed all its warehouses in the entirety of the province of Quebec when they tried to unionize against horrific working conditions.
We say nationalize Amazon, don't privatize Canada Post.
It is clear privatization is the objective for the board of directors for Canada Post.
And Carney is likely hand in hand with them.
The Postal Service is an essential service that should be public, affordable, and accessible for all Canadians.
We know mail volumes are down.
We also know the problems that new programs like SSD create on a daily basis.
We, the workers, know what is needed to adapt the Postal Service to changing economic conditions, without layoffs, without service cuts, and without making our jobs significantly more dangerous.
To do this, we need democratic workers' control of the post office.
Under our control, technological innovations could be used to shorten the workday and improve our working conditions,
while simultaneously improving service to the public.
So while we must completely reject the boss's demands for service cuts and to lay off workers,
and to reduce the workforce to part-time hours no one can live on,
we must provide a real revolutionary alternative to the compromises, to the cuts,
and not just defend the status quo of half measures and compromises that have led us into this blind alley.
We must also acknowledge it's not just us who's under attack.
The United States Postal Service is also under attack by the Trump administration, and those attacks are being copied here in Canada.
We already mentioned the Amazon workers who tried to organize themselves and were met with workplace closures.
To win all of these seemingly separate fights, we have to support each other and see them as part of the same struggle.
What we need in the logistics sector is a common union,
allowing all logistics workers to collaborate for their common demands.
At its root, the crisis the Postal Service is facing is a product of the capitalist system.
And that system is in deep crisis.
This is why the Revolutionary Communist Party members of the Canadian Union of Postal Workers
fight for a revolution.
To overthrow the system that crushes all workers for the profits of just a few.
And to end this uphill battle against the bosses once and for all.
We fight for international socialism and believe you should join us in that fight.
If you agree with what we've said, join us. Send us a message, comment below, and join the Revolutionary Communists within the Union.
I want to go home. I want to go home. Though whiz bangs and shrapnel they whistle and roar, I don't want to crouch in a trench anymore. Take me over the sea, where the alleyman can't get at me. Oh my, I don't want to die. I want to go home. I want to go home. I want to go home. For oh, the Jack Johnsons, they make such a roar. I don't want to visit La Belle France no more. Take me over the sea, where the snipers can't snipe at me. Oh my, I'm too young to die. I want to go home. I want to go home. Pull down, lads. Pass the bevy round, lads. Ta-ra to Sylvie, ta-ra to Jean. We'll soon be on the road. Don't think on what you're leaving. Don't think on what you've found. Just tear off the tilt. Pull out the chat. We'll find another ground. Pull down, lads. It wasn't a bad ground, lads. We've made some brass. You've had a lass. It's perhaps as well we're going. I know how it can hurt, lads, to leave us standing here. For there's often fears, and there's always tears. But we'll be back next year. Pull down, lads. The sets are cooling down, lads. The yacht's all packed, and the Dodge unsat. A bite of scran, then go. We'll leave it as we found it. They'll soon forget we've been. For we trade in fun, and we go and come. We're often scorned, but seldom mourned. So pull down, lads, pull down.
Hey folks, it's Sunday, July 6th. It's a beautiful day, only a little bit of rain. So a question was posed to me about like, how am I to sell you on a no vote without referencing the contract that the employer has given you? I mean, I'm not really sure how I'm supposed to sell to you what you've already asked for. Because there hasn't been any negotiations in the past 2 years. This is the same contract offer they made October 2023 with a $1,000 bribe. But, so how am I gonna sell this to you without talking about the negatives of their contract? Well, let's think about a couple of things here. One, you'll be upholding your rights under Section 2 of the Charter of Canadian Rights and Freedoms. Section 2, the right to association, guarantees us the right to strike as determined by the Supreme Court not too long ago. So we were in a legal strike position, we were on strike, that right is supposedly guaranteed. While we're challenging the CIRB in the decision to allow the use of Section 107 to send us back to work, we are challenging them on 108 and 108.1, but justice is slow. So by voting no, you will be defending your rights under the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, which will also be defending the rights of all the other workers in Canada who are going to maintain not being forced to vote as a standard. Nobody should be forced to vote on something they've already voted on. You'll also be sending a message, and that message is that it's not right, not fair, for a corporation just to wait the better part of 2 years without any movement in the negotiating table, while we've made attempts at concessions and they've made no movement whatsoever. You'll be telling them that that's not right, and that the government can't just decide that they're going to send you back to work, that they can't just force you to vote on a bullshit contract. You'll also be standing up for your own democratic rights. In this union, our demands at the negotiating table are made by the membership. Back in the beginning of 2023, our members in the local had a special GMM where people presented their ideas to send to the national office. actually to the regional office. So we created our own ideas and we voted on them, and anything that was passed went to the regional office. Then delegates were elected from all of the locals across the region. That's Saskatchewan, Alberta, Manitoba, and the Northwest Territories. And we all went to a regional conference and we voted on behalf of the other members to create a package of demands that we sent to our national office. All other regions, 7 other regions, so 8 regions total, sent in their ideas as well. And those ideas went to the national office, were compiled, and then sent back to us. And we gave our negotiating committee a mandate to search for those goals through that vote. That's a vote that most other unions don't do. Normally you just get to the regional level and then they just presume that you're giving them the mandate. But we do that extra vote just to make sure. So, and that would have been our strike vote. But that mandate was what you voted for. And that's what we're trying to go for our goals. If you don't know what those are, then I'm a little bit lost here. Because if you came to the strike vote, you heard what we were asking for. If you participated in the process, you should know what we were for. It was also published in a magazine, our Perspective magazine. I think it's in like July 2023's version of that. You can search that out on the website. So you'll be supporting the rights that you voted for. So the problem I have here is that you already voted for this, and that was the mandate we gave to them. That would be like if Minister Patty Hadju got elected and then we just decided, we changed our mind, we'd like to do another election. Wouldn't that be great, hey? We can't recall our elected officials, but they can force us to vote on something we've already voted on. That doesn't sound right to me. You'll also be deciding on keeping good jobs. Jobs that could be middle class again. You'll be voting on keeping the gig work out of Canadian politics, out of Canadian jobs, out of the public sector. Gig work is just a race to the bottom. There'll always be somebody who'll do it for a little bit less until there will be everybody who has to do it for everything that is less. So by voting no, you'll be telling the government gig work is not for us. Gig work should not be in public sector employment. Only safe, secure jobs with good pay and reasonable benefits should be allowed. You'll also be voting on the direction that the post office is going to go over the next 2 decades, I suspect. Do we want a post office that's solely privatized? Do we want our retail all to be privatized? No. I think we want an expanded post office with good public services for all Canadians everywhere. So voting no to this is in essence voting yes to the expansion of our public services to serve all Canadians. So vote no. That's the recommendation of our National Executive Board who've read the offer. That's the recommendation of our Executive Board who've mostly read the offer because it's a lot of work. And I'll be producing videos over the next short while talking about the individual items in that. But just to get this part out of the way, you have a good day.
Hey, what's up? My name is Otto from Scarborough. I'm a shop steward at the Albert Jackson Processing Center, and I'd like to share one key point to why I'll be voting no in this upcoming forced contract vote. And that reason is fairness to part-time workers. Currently, management bypasses part-timers. It gives work to full-timers on overtime and to casual employees. And you know what? That's wrong on so many levels. Currently, our negotiators are actively fighting to change the language of 3904 and 3905 of our collective agreement to ensure part-timers get a fair chance at a full shift. When part-timers are not extended, those are fewer chances to create full-time positions. Our union believes in equality and fairness for all workers. In this day and age, everyone's looking for full-time work and a fair wage.
Brothers, sisters, and comrades, to all temporary workers, our future is in our hand. Not management, not the government. We are not just temporary, we are the engine that keeps the corporation running day after day, night after night. The vote, this is fight. It's about our hours, our job, and our rights to build a future with stability, dignity, and respect. Let's stand united. Let's vote with power, because when we fight together, we will win. Thank you so much.
All right, so here we go, breaking down the bullshit, part 2. Jan Simpson, we're going to listen to her intro. The whole setup here. I wasn't going to do this. I was going to go right to the kind of the rebuttal to what Andre, what Canada Post said about the challenges. And I realized that without having the proper setup, it really didn't make sense. So we're going to do it. All right. Okay, here we go. Jan Simpson doing our rebuttal. Our opening argument.
Today we gather on the unceded territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe Nation. CUPW represents over 55,000 workers located across this country. Many are on the screen watching right now, and I thank them for all the hard work they've done every day for the Canadian public. While the majority of work for Canada Post, we also represent couriers, delivery drivers, warehouse workers, cleaners, emergency medical dispatchers, airport personnel, and other private sector employees. For this presentation, I will focus on our 2 largest bargaining units, the urban postal operations and rural and suburban mail carriers. These are the workers who went on strike on November 15th, 2024, hours before a change in working conditions promised by Canada Post. The strike continued until the Canadian Industrial Relations Board, the CIRB, ordered their return to work on December 17, 2024. Postal workers made significant sacrifices, holding strong on picket lines for good jobs, fair wages, better working conditions, health and safety issues, and a strong public post office. However, our charter rights were once again swept aside when the government ordered the CIRB to end the strike and extend the current collective agreements until May 2025. This decision halted lawful strikes and forced workers to return to the working conditions that were the same and led them to the strike in the first place. The government also convened this Industrial Inquiry Commission under Section 108 of the Canada Labour Code with the goal of gaining a better understanding of why CUPW and Canada Post failed to reach negotiated collective agreements, and to also investigate the unresolved issues between CUPW and Canada Post, as well as examine broader public policy issues that are typically addressed by way of a full mandate review. I would like to remind the Commission the last mandate review in 2016 took more than 6 months to complete. It required extensive written submissions by numerous experts and stakeholders and included public hearings across the country. This commission has neither the proper time nor the resources to make recommendations that would normally be done through a full mandate review. We believe this process is skewed in favor of Canada Post, which has more resources and access to all business information. Due to their lack of transparency and a history of half-truths and misdirection, Canada Post is better positioned to respond in a comprehensive manner within the time constraints imposed by the Minister. CUPW's position is worsened by not having full disclosure of spending by management. Despite our misgivings about this process, CUPW values any opportunity to discuss the public post office and the contributions of our members. Today, I will outline CUPW's vision for the future of Canada's public post office, examine the challenges we have faced in recent years, and explain why bargaining with Canada Post has broken down. So Canada Post finances. A key purpose of this commission is to review Canada Post's financial situation. The corporation reported a $748 million loss in 2023 and claims to have lost over $3 billion between 2018 and 2023. These figures dominated discussions during the strike, as the union was repeatedly questioned about how our demands could be met in light of Canada Post's financial struggles. CUPW asserts that Canada Post's financial claims require careful scrutiny, ideally with the support of independent financial auditing experts who can access the corporation's financial records. Our experience over the last decade and a half has taught us to be skeptical of Canada Post's financial reporting. In the past, the corporation has made inaccurate financial projections and misrepresented its financial condition to justify service cuts and demand concessions from the union in bargaining. In this round of bargaining alone, Canada Post's answers to our financial questions raise serious concerns about the transparency of its financial reporting. The union has also valid concerns that Canada Post, in reporting its financial losses, has failed to acknowledge some of the key contributing factors, including mismanagement. These include its choice to keep letter mail postage rates exceptionally low compared to other postal service globally, as well as significant rise in non-capital investments and expenses in categories such as selling, administration, purchase of mail processing equipment, and vehicles that were not needed and sit underutilized or.
I find it, she mentioned selling. And if you have a sales force and you're paying them, maybe they should do their job. And is the reason why we're losing money now because we don't have a sales force or it's been cut? I don't know. We need some explanations of why the income, why the sales have dropped and why haven't they done something to increase those sales. However, it looks like we got Amazon returns back, and I don't know if it's anything more than that. I haven't done any of those things myself, so I really, I'm not sure. But in the flyers, we've lost Canadian Tire for houses. We've got Canadian Tire for apartments, but not for houses. So I don't know what that means, and whose fault that was. But anyway,
unused, to mention a few. Rather than addressing these critical issues and seeking solutions in a timely manner, Canada Post waited until the bargaining cycle to have a manufactured crisis. Canada Post is trying to use its financial struggles as a pretext to implement drastic service cutbacks and to gut hard fought for and long-standing collective agreement rights. Bargaining challenges. To the average person, it might seem like Canada Post and the union are always at odds, that every round of bargaining leads to a strike, a lockout, or some form of government intervention. What doesn't make headlines, though, is that over the years, CUPW and Canada Post have successfully negotiated agreements that have benefited both workers and the corporation. The union's job during bargaining is simple: to improve the lives and working conditions of the workers we represent. Our program of demands is developed through a democratic process and transparent process made up of submissions from the membership, the workers. CUPW's proposal for the latest round of bargaining included wages increases to address inflation.
I think that's what I'll talk about, is she kind of briefly touched on our demands. And during the bargaining process, why we ask for what we ask for. For those of you who don't know, and I know we've spoken about this in the past, it starts off at your local where you have demand meetings where you sit around and you people write up demands and we read them out. They're put on a list of order and we go through them and we vote on them. We don't get through all of them sometimes. And the ones that make it through the process are then sent on to regional. And then at a regional convention, we will then take those demands and the demands from the other locals, and they go on a list and we go through them each one and argue over them and vote on them. And the ones that win are the ones that go into our full demands that regional demands then go to the national convention where all the regionals bring in their demands and they're put on a list, priority, and through convention they're voted on, and then the final demands are then decided on and voted on at convention. The demands then are put together. We all vote on those demands, which I find interesting because a lot of people won't take the time to vote on the demands. Yet when we get to bargaining, they also then complain about the demands, yet they should have voted on them. They should have been involved in the process, but most people don't know about the process is the problem. And when you try to teach them, there's lots of pushback, right? So anyway, those demands are then voted on and given to the committee and brought to Canada Post, all right? And then they bargain back and forth. So some of the things that people complain about, we said we wanted them. So now with this vote we've got with the CIRB, we are no longer looking at our demands. It's only the stuff from the boss that we're voting on, which is why this is a terrible thing for collective bargaining, because we've been collectively bargaining since November 23rd. And some of the things we agreed upon, the boss has now taken off the table and said, this is our final offer, take it or leave it. And they're claiming that the union is telling us propaganda and forcing us to keep this standoff going, right? So this is their solution, and it's undemocratic. It goes against our rights to strike. Anyway, so that's what she was talking about here when it comes to our demands, and kind of explaining that these aren't crazy demands and we can negotiate, but they do not negotiate. They always say their way or the highway. When we came to agreement on things, they took them off the table. Of all the garbage they're doing in the media and what's going on with this vote and the government, all of that is bad faith bargaining.
Improve staffing provisions to reduce reliance on temporary workers, protections against technological change and health and safety issues, safeguards against contracting out, and service expansion ideas to generate new revenue streams for Canada Post. Canada Post took a different approach. They created their financial situation as a reason to push for massive changes and breakthrough provisions that come at the expense of workers and could not be achieved in bargaining or arbitration in any normal situation. They didn't just propose tweaks, they wanted to rewrite the collective agreements in one round of bargaining. Their proposals included things like two-tier pension systems, increased monitoring of workers, reduction to leave entitlements and benefits, lowering the starting wage, lowering overtime rates, moving work from full-time workers to thousands of part-time positions, and the closure of corporate retail outlets. From our perspective, these rollbacks don't address Canada Post's financial challenges. This is union busting 101. The demands divide workers and undermine solidarity. Take the pension plan, for example. We heard today it's overfunded right now, and Canada Post hasn't had to contribute since May of 2023. That won't change till at least May 2025, and likely the life of these collective agreements. There is no need for this demand at this time. The biggest problem leading to no collective agreement: repeated government interventions, which have disrupted the bargaining process and made it more difficult to reach fair agreements. We heard today from June, you were talking to the employer, to the government this summer to get money. Back to work legislation and forced arbitration have become the norm, and it hurts the bargaining process. Employers like Canada Post know they can just wait it out because the government will step in and take away the union's strongest leverage, a strike. This discourages good faith bargaining by the employer and leaves long-standing issues unresolved.
Like I said,
this isn't just about CUPW. Many unions face similar challenges. Employers rely on frequent government intervention to avoid bargaining fairly. But history shows us that when strikes and lockouts are allowed to run their course, agreements get reached. Repeated interference over the last decade and a half has tipped the scales, making it harder to negotiate fair deals, eroding trust in the process and overall labor relations. Knowing what we know about Canada Post's recent record of waiting for government intervention, we approached bargaining differently in 2023. Trying an integrative approach where before bringing up specific demands, the parties presented some key issues and together sought to find solutions. We hoped many issues would be settled early and that it would speed up the bargaining process. Unfortunately, Canada Post showed little interest in bargaining solutions. They only had an appetite for their own ideas. After almost a year of bargaining and no global offer from the corporation, the union felt we had no choice but to call for a strike vote in the hopes of getting Canada Post to take bargaining seriously. A strike is always the last resort, but the union felt like Canada Post wasn't interested in negotiating and was simply waiting for the government to step in. We need to get back to meaningful bargaining, where both sides come to the table ready to listen, negotiate, and compromise. Without the government stepping in to help the Crown Corporation, it wholly owns. The case for flexibility. Throughout this round of bargaining, Canada Post repeatedly claimed that it was in a fight for its survival, that the future of the corporation was at stake, and that drastic changes to its operating model were the only way forward. The term flexibility became a go-to buzzword. You hear it in interviews with the press, at the bargaining table, and as expected, it is mentioned in the submission to this commission and multiple times today. What they seek is not flexibility, it's control. They're not trying to be flexible. They want employees to bear all the burden of this flexibility. Canada Post has made it clear that it views itself primarily as a parcel delivery company now, and they stay competitive in this sector is key to its financial stability. To achieve this, they claim they need the flexibility to introduce new delivery practices, like evening and weekend delivery, to keep up with their competitors. The reality is that Canada Post already has the ability to deliver on the weekends using its full-time workforce. What they're really asking for with this so-called flexibility is the ability to create a second-class workforce, jobs with fewer guaranteed hours and fewer protections.
Which saves them money. They have to pay out more or less for each employee they have. Because in the philosophy of running a business or whatever, it's the salaries of the manpower that is the highest cost. And so it seems to be over and over that the way they do it is to cut staff when income is dropping, instead of trying to increase the income for the business and not let go of those people, right? And that's exactly what Canada Post is doing. And now, say this Amazon thing kicks in, and I don't know, out of the blue, we start getting more parcels, and we've just cut a bunch of jobs. Now what? Not preparing for good days, just preparing for bad.
Canada Post already has a recruitment and retention problem because it cannot guarantee hours nor offer a predictable schedule. And its proposed new workforce...
Yeah, we got terms. We got temporary workers that have been temporary for 3 years. They've applied to move into part-time and full-time and even inside work. And they're still temporary. And they're still waiting for that phone call every day from the machine, Eclipse. And still going through the whole jumping seniority and assigning routes and all that stuff. By staffing.
Model will not help solve this issue. It will only aggravate it. The union has made it very clear that we will not support a model that relies too much on part-time workers to increase its stake in the delivery sector. Weekend work can happen, but not at the expense of the rights and livelihoods of the people doing the work. Changes to the delivery model have been agreed upon in past rounds of bargaining, including a parcel model in 2003 round of bargaining. Now Appendix S and 2016, when the union agreed with Canada Post to a new parcel delivery model under Appendix JJ of the Urban Collective Agreement. The goal of Appendix JJ was to allow Canada Post to deliver parcels outside of regular hours, mornings, evenings, and weekends. To achieve this, the parties agreed to create a new part-time role called Part-Time Parcel Delivery Relief. Initially, temporary employees were to be used with plans to establish regular part-time positions as demands increased. When the collective agreement called for permanent employees to be hired in Montreal,
I guess I kind of answered my question with that, is that if the volumes increase again, they're going to hire part-time and temporary people first because they've gotten rid of all the full-time, and they've pushed a lot of the people to early retirement by driving them crazy with audits and all the rest at work till you're just losing your mind, right? So yeah, that's what they'll do. When the volumes increase, they'll just hire more part-time and temporary And then we slide right into using their app.
Canada Post ended the delivery of parcels under Appendix JJ only to tell you they cannot deliver on the weekend at straight time. This is not good faith bargaining or managing. The union sees Appendix JJ as a missed opportunity. Since its introduction in 2016, the corporation has not clearly communicated its problems with the model to the union during the life of the collective agreements. Despite having multiple chances to address this during bargaining rounds in 2018, 2021, and 2023, as well through the Appendix AA committee, this lack of clarity is particularly frustrating because Appendix JJ was originally proposed by the employer. Canada Post has failed to use Appendix S properly. Appendix S allows for delivery of parcels based on the volume and density of parcels. Parcel delivery rates were created from 2004 to 2006, and since then, Canada Post has refused to recalculate the rates with the increased density and volume. Furthermore, Clause 4903 and 5205 of the Urban Collective Agreement enable the corporation to assign part-time mail service couriers to perform late and weekend delivery. The collective agreements provide for greater ability of delivery of parcels than Canada Post has used, but this mismanagement not a reason to again change the collective agreements. But that's not all. During this round of bargaining, Canada Post also took the opportunity to plant a bigger idea in the minds of the government and the public, that it needed major changes to the Canada Post Corporation Act and the Canadian Postal Service Charter to fix its financial issues. What they conveniently left out is that changes to the Charter or the Act can't be achieved through bargaining. These are government decisions that require proper review and consultation.
I just thought of something. They want to fiddle with the mandate so they can get rid of post offices, rural post offices, and change the daily delivery, which is making the volume leveling and dynamic routing possible. But there's also a way to get rid of the executives in this Canada Post Act, and I believe it's definitely Section 8. I think it's 8.1 and 8.2 or something like that. It doesn't really say that they can be removed for bad sales, but it says if they're not able to, if they don't have the capacity to do the job, or they've left the job, right? Anyway, it's up on the screen now. So yeah. So what if they went and decided, let's change the mandate so we can remove that and not have the shareholder, the government, choose to release these people. And so then it becomes the will of, I'm not sure who. Anyway, imagine them fiddling with things, you know, kind of like Donald Trump.
With all stakeholders, not bargaining table antics. All of this behavior points to an employer that knew they did not have to bargain or worry about binding arbitration, as neither process would allow for the breakthrough changes sought by Canada Post. It seems clear to CUPW and that Canada Post had information from their shareholder that the union did not have. Then Canada Post followed its up with public relations campaign to build pressure and make their case for change. This approach hasn't brought us close.
And they used all of that to fearmonger and make all their customers go away so they can break the system and then make it look like they're fixing it.
So to reaching collective agreements. If anything, it created more conflict and division. It's time for Canada Post to work with its employees and their bargaining agents, not against them, to build a sustainable future for the corporation, one that doesn't come at the expense of its workforce. CUPW's vision for the post office of the future. When bargaining between CUPW and Canada Post began making headlines, and after our members voted overwhelmingly in favor of taking strike action, if necessary, we kept hearing the same question from the media. Will anyone even notice if postal workers go on strike? Aren't you obsolete? It didn't take long for small businesses, charities, rural and isolated communities, and many other Canadians to voice just how valuable their public post office is and how.
And this is the thing a lot of people don't take into consideration, including us who are voting, is that these things that happened during the strike was a little glimpse, a little preview into what it'll be like if the changes that the executives, the CEO Doug, these changes, if they happen, what happened during the strike will be a reality. You know, so, and same with now, with the workers, the overtime ban. Well, some of us are bitching about the overtime ban, but here's the deal. If you've been relying on overtime, you're going to have no overtime if you vote yes. Well, you'll be forced to do those callbacks that you've been doing, but for free. Whoops. And I don't think people think about that. They go, oh, I'll just kind of roll with the punches and do my thing. But now you're going to have to get a part-time job. And you're working those full 8 hours now. So that part-time job comes on top of that. You can't do your 6 hours anymore and then go off to the second job. So that's what it's going to be like if we vote yes. No overtime, no paid overtime.
And that Canada Post had information from their shareholder that the union did not have. Then Canada Post followed it up with public relations campaign to build pressure and make their case for change. This approach hasn't brought us closer to reaching collective agreements. If anything, it created more conflict and division. Not bargaining table antics. All of this behavior points to an employer that knew they did not have to bargain or worry about binding arbitration, as neither process would allow for the breakthrough changes sought by Canada Post. It seems clear to CUPW and that Canada Post had information from their shareholder that the union did not have. Then Canada Post followed it up with public relations campaign to build pressure and make their case for change. This approach hasn't brought us closer to reaching collective agreements. If anything, it created more conflict and division. It's time for Canada Post to work with its employees and their bargaining agents, not against them, to build.
So I just want to stop because, oh boy, I don't know what episode back in the first season, I talked about something called micro busting. And it's just little things that they would do over time to divide us and to anger us. And then when bargaining started for this round, it happens every round actually, just like with now, but I think the aggressiveness and the tactics they've used during this round of bargaining has been crazy, like right off the charts, treating us just like criminals really. And you know, we can't make any mistakes. You might forget to put your safety brake on once in a while. And if you happen to forget and you get caught, that's 1 day suspension without pay. Like, it's crazy, just crazy. And I mean, this is for a small transit. I'm not talking about a big semi truck. So anyway, and the things that they're doing now to bust is crazy. And people are falling for it because they don't know. Some people are going to vote yes, and they don't know why they shouldn't. And it's just because they haven't gotten involved. So that's, after this round of bargaining, I think we all need to reassess what we think is important with this job. And if you're just treating it like a little side hustle, well, you have to realize that some of us, a lot of us, this is a career. Some of us have been doing it for 37 years. And to walk in and to say, whatever, I'll just work on weekends. Some people like that. Some people need that. Well, then some people can go work for Uber. Go work for a small logistics company if that's what you want. But this is a public service. We need to treat it like a public service and respect it. This job is a respectful job, and we've got to get that back.
A sustainable future for the corporation, one that doesn't come at the expense of its workforce. CUPW's vision for the post office of the future. When bargaining between CUPW and Canada Post began making headlines, and after our members voted overwhelmingly in favor of taking strike action, if necessary, we kept hearing the same question from the media. Will anyone even notice if postal workers go on strike? Aren't you obsolete? It didn't take long for small businesses, charities, rural and isolated communities, and many other Canadians to voice just how valuable their public post office is and how important it still is to their daily lives. Before we talk about our vision for the future, it's worth looking back at the history of the public post office in Canada on why it matters so much. The federal government has recognized the importance of the post office since the very beginning. Post offices weren't just about delivering letters, they were about building the nation. They encouraged businesses, transportation, and infrastructure development. In fact, the Post Office Department was created the same year as Confederation in
So we are responsible for the income for a lot of these businesses, especially charities, right? And that was on the news over and over and over during the strike, is like how we got to get to send these guys back to work, send them back to work, got to get them back going, getting those passports delivered and those parcels delivered. And well, now they don't need us, right? All these changes need to happen because we're losing money. Well, it's because we were losing sales. Again, it's so simple.
1867. In 1981, the post office was transformed into a crown corporation. CUPW is proud to have played a large part in its creation. The result was Canada Post, which allowed it to adapt to changing communication needs and growing competition while continuing its role of promoting public welfare and supporting the national economy. Canada is also a member of the Universal Postal Union, which commits the country to providing affordable, reliable postal services across the country.
See, and that's another organization we can use, that we have used to get costing, right? I mean, yes, Canada's a different country, but you could probably take those same formulas of postal banking from around the world and just adjust them to Canada. But in those countries, they don't have CIBC, Royal Bank, and TD involved in the process. And, you know, guys with money. Actually, on a side note, I've found this website where you can look up all of your members of parliament, and you can find out if they're landlords, if they have properties, and if they're making income, and all their assets, right? So I find it very interesting. I haven't had time. Actually, I should look up Patty, but I haven't had time to look at them all. But I find it very interesting. I betcha, because some of the people, especially my MP, has a ton of investments and is a landlord. At least I think he was a landlord. He's got tons of investments, that's for sure. Makes way more money just off those things than I ever will, you know. And he gets a salary of $8,000, the bottom entry level, so to speak. Just being a member, voting member, or whatever. 8,000, well, 99,000 a year, right? So I'd be interested to see that what the politicians that are making the decisions about our future and claiming that we're making too much money when we're below the standard of living right now. Once again, I'm juggling between paying my utility bills and food. Got the rent covered. That's always first. Anyway. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see how poverty-stricken the people that making decisions on our behalf are.
This universal service is about more than mail. It's about keeping communities connected. We know the post office faces challenges like inflation, letter mail is declining, parcel shipping is more competitive in some areas, and some competitors that are appearing are not covered by federal law, and others are not complying with minimum standards.
Speaking of that, James Ball mentioned it earlier in the show during the updates, but now they're using other courier companies to deliver our mail. And they're charging 4 times the postal rate to do that. So once again, they're ripping off somebody when we've been working the whole time. They could just send it through the regular mail, but no, because they've told their customers there's a possibility for a labor strike, and it was back in May and it didn't happen. These people are scared to use our services for no reason, all because of microbusting. And all of this is for us, they're killing the business to trick the workers into dividing and going with them. And then they've been able to force this vote somehow to really just kill it, right? We have to vote no for the future of collective bargaining.
CUPW strongly believes these challenges can be answered without undermining the public nature of Canada Post. A crown corporation should not compare itself to gig economy carriers like Amazon and its subcontractors who actually use Canada Post for last mile delivery in many rural and remote areas.
And then Canada Post goes and buys one of those services. They sold one off about a year ago, and then they bought another one just after getting an infusion of cash.
In short term, CUPW wants to work with Canada Post to increase revenue in ways that don't harm workers or compromise service to the public. Over the next few years, the union's goal are to expand services, reduce precarious work, and make sure Canada Post remains self-sufficient. But our vision goes far beyond survival. We envision a post office that stays public and accessible. A post office that remains affordable and reliable, connecting even the most remote communities with the rest of the country. Meets modern needs. One that adapts to the growing demands for parcel delivery, including same-day delivery. Supports rural and remote communities. One that ensures good services and plays an active role in improving food delivery, food security, and reconciliation for Indigenous communities. This includes services in the denser urban areas to subsidize the cost of more expensive remote areas. Without services in the cities, the cost of servicing only remote areas would aggravate Canada Post's problem. Diversify services. Like many postal systems around the world, Canada Post can do more than mail and parcels. It could offer financial services, support the underbanked, and even provide services in communities abandoned by traditional banks. Act as a community hub. Imagine post offices becoming spaces where people can access government services, attend farmers markets, charge electrical vehicles, and even support local businesses and pop-up shops.
So, yeah. And then, if it's working out, which it is, add on that low-cost grocery store, you know? Get those groceries to those small towns for cheaper, because we have bigger buying power, right? Then maybe, I don't know, add on a little bit of a recreational center with a pool or some hockey rink size fields, field house, I think is what they officially call it. A little theater, as in live theater, all these things. And because it's a public service, the public, it is owned by the public, creating community. And I mean, who's stopping this from happening in urban situations as well? Get it out of, get the post offices out of Sobeys and out of Shoppers Drug Mart and make them community hubs, right? Simple.
They can lead as a climate change. Canada Post should be a federal leader in green initiatives, using electric vehicles, retrofitting buildings, and consolidating last mile delivery to reduce emission and traffic congestions. And most importantly, we see a post office that continues to provide good paying, stable jobs with benefits, pension, and safe working conditions, jobs that reflect Canada's diversity and strength of our own communities. The bigger picture. This is just about
jobs that provide a salary that can pay for the standard of living. You know, a job that can cover with pay that can cover car payments, rent or a mortgage, electricity, food, just those basics. That's all we need. It would be nice to put some away, but at the very minimum, I should be able to live after working 40 hours a week, walking 15 to 17 kilometers per day. I should be able to, my reward should be at least I can live comfortably. at least break even.
But this isn't just about surviving today's challenges. It's about building a post office that serves future generations. Many postal services around the world have already expanded and diversified to meet changing needs. It's time for Canada Post to do the same. CUPW is ready to work with Canada Post and the government to make this vision a reality. The public has spoken, and our research backs it up. Canadians want a strong public post office that meets their ever-changing needs now and into the future. In the meantime, CUPW and its members remain committed to the fight for a better, more inclusive, and innovative post office. The struggle continues, but so do our determination. Thank you. Merci beaucoup.
Is that CUPW submission, or are other people going to be speaking?
Yeah, others will take questions and speak as well. So Nicola?
Well, are there other statements first? Because I have a bunch of
No,
questions.
you can ask your question. We'll all take them.
Okay, but there's no further presentations?
Yes, we have a few more. So Nicola?
Can you just give us a...
All right, so we're going to cut this here as a segment, because coming up next podcast, we will continue on with this, and we'll get to hear Kaplan question us, like they've been arrested and they got that light going. Where were you on? You know, it's gonna be quite interesting. And just off the top at the end here, you notice how he didn't even let Jan introduce the next. It had to be the way he wants it. Oh, well, are you going to give us an overview? Well, she kind of just did in some ways, and then didn't actually go, okay, we're going to have this person talk about this and this person talk about that. But she actually didn't even get a chance to get that out.
Sisters and brothers, comrades, we are here today in Gateway. We started early morning to meet with the CUPW members to explain for them about what is happening with our negotiation, how the interference of the government is affecting our life. Shame on the Minister of Jobs, Barry Hashtu, for interfering our negotiation. Sisters and brothers, this is the global offer. How many of you can go through this one and read? How many of you will understand even the legal language? That's why we have two different lawyers to go through it. That's why we have our negotiation committee. That's why we have consultants and NEB to go through that, to decide for us. So the decision we are making today is the decision that our union, our lawyers, our consultants went through with this one, their shitty global offer, and come to us. It's no today, it's no for the future of Canada Post. Let's keep Canada Post public, and it is public. It's what the Canadians were living on it last 3 years when we were in COVID. After the COVID, Canada Post was the source of life. So solidarity and stay together. Thank you.
Hey everybody, it's a beautiful day. It is the 12th of July. I started making other videos, but I think I'm going to lay this out this way. I'm going to be providing you guys with contract information, the offer that they're going to send us, that they're forcing us to vote on. So there will be two visuals that I will use to help you find the videos. One of them will be for the urban members. It will be blue. It will look like this. And the other one will be red. It'll be for RSMCs, and it'll look like this. So the idea here is to dispel the myths and talk about what they're offering and why it's terrible. So I guess the question I have is everybody yelling yes, because everybody I've talked to who says yes, vote yes, vote yes, I ask them what they're voting for. And their answers are usually very vague. Their answers are for the future of our jobs. Well, the jobs that we have are guaranteed under the Canada Post Corporation Act. When they start changing that, let me know. Because the mail needs to be delivered Monday to Friday. The government is ultimately responsible for the cost of doing that. And then they say for the company to be profitable. The company is doing its job as being profitable, but they're overspending in capital asset purchases. So we'll be talking about a lot of things. I'll start with probably with wages and the bonus structure and all that jazz. And then we'll start getting into the nitty gritty of it. But But just keep that in mind. I'll be doing that over the next short period of time. There is also a webinar on the 16th, which is coming up very quickly, which will be run by our national office, which may cover everything that I'm going to cover. It may not. I don't know what's on it. I'm not part of the team that's creating that. But my intention is to get you as much information as possible. If you need to sign up for the webinar, you can go to our website and then download or use the link that's appropriate to register for that. There's also a spot where you can put a question that you want to have answered at that webinar. Okay? Keep your chin up, and we'll come back tomorrow. That was actually what we sent out with the texting service just this past Thursday, was the link to that. So if you've got that text and you want to sign up for that webinar, which I encourage you to do, it's at 6 p.m., I think, check the information for it. But that came out in the texting service to the local. All right? Have a great day.
Well, folks, that's the show. I had to cut some stuff off that'll be in the next one. And I mean, it was so, like, this show could go on for 6 hours if I include everything I want, but I can't. So we'll see you in a little while with our next episode of the Silver Bullet podcast. Take care, everybody. Try to keep calm and keep moving on, and vote no whenever that vote will happen. Uiho kako. Until we meet again, see you next time.
It's bigger than the people strength of one, for the union makes us strong. Solidarity forever, solidarity forever, solidarity forever, for the union makes us strong. Taking up the fight. We can take their holy power, gain our freedom when we learn that the union makes us strong. Solidarity forever, solidarity forever, solidarity forever, for the union makes us strong. Evil union, if your power is blue, that is just for the union makes us strong. Solidarity forever, solidarity forever, solidarity forever, for the union makes us strong. Solidarity forever, solidarity forever.